Welcome to Podsdale, brought to you by the City of Scottsdale. Join us to explore the stories that make our city a world-class community.
Welcome to Podsdale, the City of Scottsdale podcast, where we talk about the people, programs, and services that help keep our community running. I'm Gail, and today we're talking about wildfire mitigation in Scottsdale. Now, living next to the desert is one of the things that makes Scottsdale special, but it also means wildfire preparedness is something we have to think about, especially this time of year. From dried grasses and invasive plants to defensible spaces around our homes, there's a lot happening behind the scenes to help reduce fire risk across the city. Joining me today are Dave Folio, the Public Information Officer with Scottsdale Fire, and Dave Ramirez, Fire Mitigation Specialist. And they're going to talk about how the department prepares for wildfire season, what residents should know, and some simple steps people can take now to protect their homes, their neighborhoods, and of course, our beautiful preserve. So for people who may not realize it, Dave, why is wildfire mitigation such an important issue in Scottsdale specifically?
Yeah, so thanks for having us. A lot of people picture Scottsdale as an upscale suburban city with golf courses, resorts, not a wildfire-prone community, but several factors make it more vulnerable to brush fires than many residents would ever think. The city's built directly in the desert, wildland-urban interface. We are an urban interface department. People don't realize that the state is in 80% drought right now, so it really makes us prone with the fuels drying out and all that. So Dave will talk more on that. He's our specialist, but the city's built directly in the desert wildland. Much of Scottsdale, especially North Scottsdale, borders and extends into open desert terrains and connected into our McDowell Sonoran Preserve. So in some neighborhoods, a fire started just outside a backyard will quickly move into the open spaces and even burn aggressively into some of our washes. So it's extremely important for us to do the work that we're doing with fuel mitigation projects and getting the word out on Firewise. Scottsdale's weather creates dangerous fire conditions also. As you know, we have prolonged heat. We had a really dry winter, which didn't help us at all because we had a little bit of a little bit of wetness come in, which just fired off invasive fuels and grasses that Dave will talk about, and then really low humidity that we're having. So we're off and running, the washes, especially right now, that some of the areas that Dave will talk about that he's been working on, they act as natural fire corridors. So if we were to have a fire, some of that fire would shoot right directly into the washes and foothills and can funnel both wind and flames into some of those areas. And then just the development patterns for increased exposures that we have. A lot of our bigger homes are built on the sides of the mountains. So they spread out and they take up a lot of space, and then there's a lot of vegetation around them. So, that's kind of where we're at in the city. We take it seriously. Dave's done a lot of work for about 3 years now. I think we came on about 5 years ago, already 5 years ago.
That's great, but make sure you keep looking at the mic when you talk about it.
Yes.
I know you want to look at him and engage.
So I'll let Dave, I'll introduce Dave Ramirez. He's our wildland fuel mitigation project manager, and let him tell you about a little bit of what the projects he's doing.
Well, before you get started, Dave, because you have a lot of work, you touched on something. I'm sorry. Yeah, you're both Dave. I'm like, wait a minute. But before you get started, Mr. Ramirez, on mitigation efforts, you touched on something that I want to circle back to. You say, because we're going to talk about what residents can do. You say these residents that live in these interfaces that are, in the desert, on these mountains, some of them, you have access to their backyards where they can, that's how they can be a part of the solution. And we'll also talk about what people in the cities can do. But before we go anywhere else, what everybody's going to want to know is it always fire season? And what I think is, listen, we have climate change. And so what was typically our fire season in the past has expanded. So Dave Ramirez, tell us, what is the peak fire season here in Scottsdale?
Well, the peak is right before we get into our monsoon season. Mm-hmm. So, our month that is the most critical is June. And that's when the brush is all dried out. Those live fuels, their moisture is all gone. Mm-hmm. When we have fires, burns through the grass. That's our carrier, the invasive grass that we have now. And then it gets into the brush, and the brush burns. And we always talk about how a fire goes from a ground fire into the crowns. And it does that by having ladder fuels. And so that's kind of how fire moves in the desert. And so I guess the one thing that I want to point out is that this system, this Sonoran Desert that we live in, it was not evolved with fire. It did not evolve with fire. And there's not a lot of systems in our country that are like that. And so really what we're seeing is that we've got all these invasive grasses and weeds that we're having to live with now, and that has created a tremendous problem, and we're losing a lot of our Sonoran characteristic because of these giant wildfires that we're having in our Sonoran Desert.
So how do monsoons and seasonal vegetation growth affect wildfire risk later in the year? Is it those invasive species, or is there something else going on?
Well, typically what happens is it mostly is that winter season. That's when we get most of our moisture, believe it or not. And so if we have a wet winter, typically that's when we get most of those invasive grasses and weeds that grow. We do still, when we get into our monsoon season, the brush responds very well to that moisture that we get. And there's some invasive brush that we get during that season. But typically, the grass and those weeds, it's that winter season that is the most critical.
All right. So what are some of the biggest wildfire risks that Scottsdale Fire watches for?
Well, like Dave said, overall, our winter was pretty dry. But in our early winter, in November, we got some significant rains. And because it was unseasonably warm this winter, when we got that moisture, these grasses that typically don't respond until we get into like February and March when it starts warming up, when the ground gets warm. In November and December, our ground was warm. And so those invasive plants like the grasses and the weeds like stinknet or globe chamomile, they responded and they started growing.
Globe chamomile is everywhere. I'm a big hiker. I hike all around the state. It's invasive like you wouldn't believe, and you think it's all pretty, but that's not great for us.
No, it's not. Well, and the thing about globe chamomile is that each little yellow bulb has 500 to 1,000 seeds in it.
Oh.
And then the viability of that seed is 3 to 5 years. And so if it's a dry winter, typically we won't see a lot of globe chamomile around. If it's a wet winter, then it responds really well. And this year, just because it was warm and we had that period of time in our early winter where we had moisture, that globe chamomile really responded well. And an example, we had a fire 2 years ago. It was about 2,000 acres, and it was right on the border of the Tonto National Forest and our preserve, the McDowell Sonoran Preserve. And it was awesome because the treatments that we do, we're going to be talking about some of our fire mitigation, but one of our treatments that we do on the north end of the preserve stopped the southern spread of the fire. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. And that was awesome. But now here we are 2 years later, and this winter with the early moisture that we had, that 2,000 acres of, that's, most of which is on the Tonto, 1,800 acres of that is covered in stinknet. So all of that seed from those plants is a lot of that seed is going to blow onto the McDowell Sonoran Preserve now. So
are most of the brush fires human-caused, or are they naturally occurring?
Well, almost.
I'll take that one.
Okay, yeah.
You talk about the so you ask about the highest risk. In my mind, the last 7 starts we've had in the city are construction started. So they're human caused without a doubt. So we have extremely dry vegetation, triple digits, low humidity. And we're doing right now, we've manned up 2 brush trucks in the north part of our city, and eventually we're going to be at 4 because we're doing has-veg inspections where we're doing windshield inspections, driving neighborhoods. We've got an iPad that we can either hit the house green or red, so we quickly look at it. If it needs attention, we take pictures, document it, And then we did 40,000 of those, over 40,000 last year of those inspections. And then last year we did close to 11,000 construction site inspections. So, and then just recently, as of a couple days ago, we showed up on a construction site where we have this vegetation growing right off the backside of where they're putting in a fence, and they've got 7 saws working, cutting masonry, cutting brush, no hose line in place, no fire extinguisher in place, no spotters. So the problem is predominantly our winds come from the south, go to the northeast, and we know that. So that's some of the work that Dave's done on roadways, right-of-ways, and to eliminate some of that. If we do get a start on Phoenix's side, for instance, he's done work over there where it doesn't come onto the Scottsdale side. So definitely, without a doubt, human cause is our highest risk right now. That's why we're really pushing out the don't drag the chains going up Pima Road when you're going to the lake or pulling a construction trailer. Be really mindful of dragging chains because that throws sparks in the desert, which comes back to some of the roadway work he's done to help eliminate some of that. And then obviously, have a spotter. Every construction site gets permitted, and we give you a sheet of telling you what to do for fire permit requirements. And that on that sheet says you have to have a spotter when you're doing hot work. We're eventually going to work into, and we're really close to, you're going to have to call in a number to let our fire prevention people know that you're doing that hot work so we can come out and inspect it. So we're really close to getting to that number out. But yeah, like Dave said, with the heavy fuels that we have, the dry vegetation, triple digits, it's definitely our highest risk is human caused.
Okay, Mr. Ramirez, it's your turn now. What does mitigation efforts mean to you? What are fire mitigation efforts in your mind? What does that encapsulate?
Well, in Scottsdale, we have a really holistic view of, how to protect our communities. And it's awesome. And it, we've got all these different legs of our program. We have a FireWise leg where communities do work in and around their communities. And we've got one of the largest FireWise programs in the country. As a matter of fact, we have the 2 largest communities in the whole country here in Scottsdale, DC Ranch and Desert Mountain. That's cool because that's, we are protecting a lot of values at risk, in and around Scottsdale. FireWise is one part of it. And then we also have our right-of-ways that we treat. When we treat those right-of-ways, the edges of the roadways, it really is making those roadways a better control feature, a good way to stop fire. And not only that, it really gives our first responders a chance to catch a fire when they start. And so that's very effective. And then we also are doing some treatments on the preserve. We've got a $2 billion investment in our McDowell Sonoran Preserve, and we want to protect that. So we're doing a lot of treatments on the preserve. And then also, adjacent to those right-of-ways, we've got a lot of values at risk as far as critical infrastructure. Our water treatment sites, power lines, water lines. And so those treatments are protecting that critical infrastructure. That's kind of our plan, is to not only focus on the communities themselves, also those right-of-ways and protect all of that critical infrastructure for the city.
That sounds like the what you do to prepare for wildfire season before it starts. These right-of-ways, protecting infrastructure, that has to happen, and you have to plan for that before the fire season starts, correct?
That is exactly correct. And so it's really, once we get into fire season, all of that work stops because we don't want to start a fire when we're out doing fire mitigation work. And that's why for all of us, like when Dave's out and he's driving around or the fire crews are driving around and they see people working at a site and they're doing cutting and grinding, this is fire season. And we've already had fires in and around the valley. We see how active the fire season is going to be. There's a lot of fine fuel and the brush is drying out. And the Tonto, just these last couple of weeks, have had a couple of large wildfires right around the valley. And so this is not the time to be doing a lot of those types of activities.
I mean, what role does the community play in helping reduce wildfire risk? Because we've already talked about what construction needs to do, how they're because of the grinding and that's causing fires. But what can the everyday citizen do in their communities and their homes besides letting bushes and stacks of wood lay up against your house?
Yeah.
I know that's the one thing is to move that, folks. I can tell you that right now.
Yeah, be fire-wise. Give us let's start with a 5-foot defensible space. Just thinking about all the flammables around the back wall, your back wall on the patio. Back to a little bit of, we do a lot of training leading up to the fire season. So we learn different hose loads and stuff, how to pull, and we call what's bump and run. So if you were to get a fire, we can quickly go into your backyard, and it really helps us when we go in your backyard and you've given us a 5-foot to probably 30-foot defensible space. So 5 feet, moving the wood piles away, the flammable liquids, and then even 10 feet out, clearing the dead brush from your house, bringing it up off the desert floor, just 4 feet, trimming up the trees. And then even further than that, on your back fence, so you don't have those ladder fuels that Dave talked about coming up into the trees and into the attic of your home. So help us out with that. That's what you can do. And then we've got 33 communities that are fire-wise, like Dave was saying. We've got the most in the United States. So everybody wants to help us. We want to work with our community to help them. And then just be mindful, get involved. When we're going to start holding a couple of workshops too. And Dave is always willing to come out and talk to you about Firewise. But yeah, just do your part and be Firewise. One Less Spark is our campaign this year.
Dave Ramirez, friend of the HOA meeting.
He is. Yeah. He really is.
Yeah, okay. So what's one thing that gives you confidence about Scottsdale's wildfire preparedness efforts at this point?
We do the most than anything, wouldn't you say? I remember when you started 5 years ago, there were municipalities that weren't even doing this, and now everybody's wanting to do fire mitigation. And obviously when you see what happens in California and when you have those type of wildfires, it brings heightened awareness, but Dave's, what he hasn't talked about too, he's really good at acquiring grants to be able to pay for some of this stuff through some of the different avenues to do that too.
Oh, one thing though. We've talked about defensible space. For those people who aren't from here, because we have so many people who move to the valley, or some people may not have thought about it, what is defensible space? How do you define that?
Well, defensible space is really, we want to make it safe for our first responders. And so it's really the idea of not having fuels that grow right up against the house or against your property. And so we like to have a break in that fuel so that our first responders can get in there and have a chance to protect your home. And so really that kind of is it in a nutshell. I mean, we have some Firewise standards that we follow, and that is really kind of our marching orders for how we can have that break in fuel continuity and give those first responders a safe place to get into to work. The other thing is for those communities and individual homeowners, because not everybody is in an HOA, if anybody wants us to come out and look at their properties, they can get on the Scottsdale website. They can make arrangements to have somebody come out and talk to them, look at their property, do an assessment. And I think it's just that level of service that really is key to our success and that working relationship that we have with our communities. And then it goes back to, when we get grants, we're working with our communities. I do a lot of work right on the borders of the communities, and then they take care of the inside. And it's been very effective for us. And just we have an outstanding rapport with our public.
What's one tip you would give residents? If you could give them one tip to prevention that you see all the time that you think needs to be drilled home, what is that?
Timing. Yeah. Don't be doing fire mitigation when it's fire season.
Okay.
Weed eating, cutting, grinding, any mechanical.
Yeah. And here's the cool thing. We work so closely with our other departments. I've got a program. I'm getting grant dollars right now to buy rollout dumpsters. Scottsdale has bulk trash pickup monthly. It's awesome. But it's hard for homeowners to coordinate because
Excuse me, did you say monthly?
Monthly.
Because in the city of Phoenix, I think you get 4 a year where they'll come by. You make an appointment. Right. You don't have to wait and look for that calendar that comes out. That you make an appointment and they just show up. But you do it monthly.
Monthly. It's awesome.
That's why it's so much better in Scottsdale.
Well,
that's our new motto for me. It's so much better in Scottsdale.
Again, the level of service that we provide to our customers,
yes.
Those homeowners, It's just off the charts.
And that's everyone in Scottsdale, not those just living in the north, not those near Old Town.
Everybody. It's just amazing. But, the thing is like when you offer things like bulk trash pickup, people can do their treatments around their home, even if they want to do it themselves, if they can't afford a landscaper. But they can do that themselves, put the bulk trash out front, and then, monthly they come and pick it up. And then we also have a program where we're going to provide rollout dumpsters to communities. If you have a location, if you live in the city of Scottsdale, we'll bring out a rollout dumpster, and your landscapers, as they come in and treat around your property, they can put that green waste, because we don't want to fill up our landfill with green waste. That can be recycled, and that's our plan in Scottsdale. We're going to chip all of that green material, and then it can be used for compost or chips or whatever. And so we're not plugging up our landfill with that green waste. And so there's nobody else in the valley that I'm aware of that offers that will come out, bring a rollout, you fill it up, we'll come and dump it or take it away.
How important is landscaping when it comes to wildfire prevention? Besides the fact, you're creating that defensible space, but if you're thinking about creating a landscaping plan.
It's critical to our success. It really is. And, just the rules that we have in place, the ordinances that we have about landscaping and making sure that we're using native plants and things like that. That's why we're so successful. We've been very successful. We do not lose a lot of homes to wildfires.
I think it goes without saying that we're not the Midwest. We're not the East Coast. We don't burn leaves here. So we would caution people, don't burn what they're getting rid of. And you say, since you have bulk trash pickup once a month, that when they're getting rid of stuff, you guys will come get it. Anything else they should know about when they're cleaning up brush and getting rid of things?
Yeah, know that you can't burn. It's got to be a warming fire or in a pit. So we go on these calls quite often where there's smoke. Back to the point of what people can do. If you see smoke, call us earlier than later. A lot of the construction starts and even some of the other starts that we've had, people have tried to put it out themselves before calling 911. Call 911 and get us coming so that we can make sure that the fire is out and mopped up. And then also come back to the ready, set, go. No ready, set, go. Part of that ready is having that defensible space, having a go bag ready to go with all your medicines, all your papers and your love things. And then if it goes to set, you're ready. You've got all that in the car ready to go, and then go obviously means evacuate. So know that. Yeah, just help us out to be a good fire-wise community.
For residents who live near the preserve or open desert areas, are there particular extra precautions they need to take? I always think, my first thought is, it's been drilled into my brain by every fire department, defensible space, anything else?
There's times where you can use the fireworks that people may still have too. Know that we have an ordinance in the city of Scottsdale. You can't use any of those novelty and or fireworks within a mile of our preserve. And then you can't use them. There's set dates. Like I think for instance, July 4th is coming up. Mm-hmm. You'll be able to use them July 3rd through like the 6th. And then those are the only dates that you can use those, even the sparklers. And then anything that takes off into the air is illegal, period. So just know that. And then once again, just using common sense with flicking the cigarettes out the window. Don't do that,
I
please.
hate that.
Oh, it drives me nuts.
One hit me in the hand once. I was not pleased. Luckily, It didn't burn me, but it hit me in the hand. And I heard from a firefighter once that one time a bird picked one up and put it in its nest, and a palm tree went up.
Yeah.
Was he telling me the truth, do you think?
Well, and so when you see that flicked out the thing, you see it rolling, right? And it continues to throw off sparks. So that's what happens. It eventually moves itself off the roadway, which that's the great work Dave's doing to eliminate a lot of those flash fuels on the roadway. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it does keep burning for some time.
Now, one of the things we talked about how residents can do to help, and we alluded to it earlier, is those people who give you permission to go on their properties. Talk about that program.
So we do the HAZVEG inspections. So if we do mark your house red, it goes into the system. Mm-hmm. So we actually hang a door hanger on your doors talking about what we found. Mm-hmm. And then it talks, there's several steps on that door hanger. Defensible space, clearing the vegetation. I think when we talk about that vegetation, a lot of people think we're talking about completely cutting down. We're just talking about removing the dead vegetation, bringing it up off the ground like we talked about. So that's all explained on there. And then it'll be followed up with we'll send you a postcard in the mail just to remind you, hey, we left a door hanger, where are you at with this? And then we'll re-inspect that at the end of our season just to make sure that it was done. So that's what we're coming on your property for. We're going to hang a door hanger, just wanting to work with our community to team up with us to be Firewise.
You've alluded to this, and you said when a fire happens, no matter if you see it on a site, you see smoke, what's the best way to notify you? Just call 911?
Call us immediately. We're on the automatic aid system here in the city of Scottsdale where we, for instance, the Diamond Fire we had 3 years ago, you saw a lot of units coming from Glendale, Tempe, Peoria, Phoenix. We're on an automatic aid system, so it actually sends the closest vehicle to you. So we could have one of those brush trucks out roaming the area, and it could be right on the next block over. Please call us, start us, so we can come over and make sure that the fire is mopped up.
What should families do to prepare? Well, that's part of that ready, set, go, because most people are not prepared for an evacuation.
Yeah, have a go bag ready with all your medicines in it, your contact numbers, and if you have special needs for any type of children or dogs or pets, have all that ready. So if you do have a fire in your community and we send out the ready alert, which will come across your phone, just be ready for that. And then obviously set is getting all that stuff, like I said, close to the door, ready to go in the vehicle. Start thinking about your evacuation plans in your neighborhood, how you're going to get out of your neighborhood, how you're going to get out of the gate if the gate's locked, those type of things, and then go obviously as evacuation.
You just talked about alerts. How do those alerts work?
Comes through the phone. I think the emergency management department talked about signing up for the app. I can't.
Yeah, it's the program's WIA.
Okay.
Yeah, and so that if you sign up for that and it's free, it'll ring your phone. You'll get that buzz just like you do for an Amber Alert, and then it'll come over your phone, and it'll typically talk about that there's a going brush fire. Right out of the gate, they don't always evacuate people. It kind of depends on the threat.
A lot of the times, watch your social media too. We immediately post that we're in the ready or set go on our social media sites. And then fortunately, when we make those posts through the fire department, the media reposts that. And then, turn on your local news channels. They'll be talking about the fire. That helped us a lot on the Diamond Fire, actually. We were actually doing phoner where we call in and talk on the way up there and letting people know that, hey, we're evacuating 136th Street and Dynamite, a lot of horse properties through there. So it really helped them, give them a heads up that, hey, the fire's moving that way. Along with, you'll hear evacuation sites where you can go to, like we set up the Cave Creek High School, for instance, and the Cave Creek Rodeo grounds where they took a lot of horses in. So that helped us out a lot. But we will definitely, within probably minutes, send that out through our social media sites.
Where can residents go to learn more about wildfire prevention in the city of Scottsdale?
Yeah, scottsdalefire.gov / and then just type in keyword fire safety or wildfires, and then it'll bring you up to our website.
Well, thank you guys so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. We were talking to Public Information Officer Dave Folio, and we were speaking to Dave Ramirez, Fire Mitigation Specialist. You guys do have such an important role. You do a lot of great work for the city. Thank you for joining Podsdale.
Thank you.
Well, thanks, Gail.
That's all for this episode of Podsdale. If you enjoyed listening, be sure to subscribe. You can find us on YouTube or in your favorite podcast app. Share episode ideas and provide your feedback by emailing communications@scottsdaleaz.gov. Thanks for listening.